Hello, welcome to the Mark Out Show Adventures in a Meat Suit. Today I'm joined by Nigel R Mitchell of Tunnelmental in California. Hi, Nigel.
Hello, how you doing?
So I'm very good, thanks. To you?
Yeah. I mean, too bloody hot again.
Well, I can't complain about that. I'm in the west of Ireland, which is basically the umbrella for the UK.
Yeah,
It's
no, I understand.
like being in a ship in the Atlantic.
Yeah. I mean, my first 34 years of my life were spent in the UK, so I'm well aware of inclement weather and greyness and other sorts of greyness too, which we can get into in a little while. But when I came to California for the first time, I was like, wow, it's so like amazing. I mean, the place is amazing. Yeah,
You,
there's gardens.
you know those headphones you were going to plug in? Maybe a good idea because just a little bit quiet.
Yeah. All right.
Just
I'm
to
going to
make
put them
sure.
on now.
I've got to upgrade my own kit because the Zoom's okay. I've got a microphone, but I'm not even sure it works. Hello.
You're talking and I can't hear you.
Oh yeah, I know. So I'll just keep talking. I'm talking to
Okay.
the audience really. Hello guys. We're just waiting for the microphone to be plugged in. That's all right. You're doing well. You're doing well. Look, I could be saying anything. Here we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
That's better.
Can you hear me?
Perfect. That's much better actually.
Yeah, good.
So yeah, you got to California and you couldn't believe the weather.
Well, it wasn't just the weather, the beautiful countries. I mean, when I started traveling in, which wasn't, I mean, I'd been on the Spanish holiday and, little bits of into Europe. But when I took a year in, I think, I don't even know, I was about 34. And it was one of the times when I took notice of an awakening in me. And I said, okay, that's it. We sell everything. For a year, I'm going around the world. I'm taking the blinders off. Because we have these preconceived notions of what the rest of the world is like, especially if you live a blinkered existence in
Yeah.
England or in the UK within a very, very strict control system. Because a lot of people don't think it's a strict control system. That's the thing that really, I'd politically become awake, but um, I hadn't found that I was too restricted from what I wanted to do up until then. And then I thought, you know what, that's enough. I mean, I've seen and witnessed enough restrictions on my freedom. So I decided that for a year I was going to peel the onion, go to different places all around the world. And it was low budget. I mean, we had, it's my first wife and myself, and she, to this day, she lives in Northern California. We split up many years ago, but God, she'd lived in Marlborough in Wiltshire, and I was a jockey, and I was at a stables near there, and we met when we were very young, and we had fun for about 10 years, just 10 years of marriage, and then it was like, is this it? Is this it? Because this can't be it.
No.
And one day, it was actually, I had a really bad fever. I was sick, and I was just in a little apartment that we just bought. So we bought it from the local housing association. So we just bought it. It was really cheap. And we were both working in dead end jobs, and we were like, "Is this it? This flat? This life? Is this it?" Anyway, we were going through backwards and forwards about being, workaholics and trying to get ourselves up by our bootstraps, and we thought, this can't be it. Anyway, I had this fever and I went to sleep. I woke up in a fever dream, and it was a really bizarre fever dream because I woke up and I had to wake her up because I got out of bed. I was walking through one door into the hallway, into the spare bedroom, along the hallway, into the kitchen. Each time I went through a door, I was somewhere else. I mean, just literally like, whoa, whoa. So it was a fever dream, or it was, I don't know, an awakening, a premonition.
Sounds like something else to me, but carry on.
Yeah, no, I mean, but the thing is, what I've always confused ever since a child is what's the message and what's my thoughts. I read far too much. I think at the time I was reading The Doors of Perception, how appropriate, with the fever dream going through the doorways, and The Door Marked Summer, which were both written by Michael Bentine.
Oh, I used to love him.
Oh, I
as in
still
Michael Bentine.
That's the
As
Michael
in Potty
Bentine.
Time.
As in the Michael Bentine.
Oh, I
Yes.
love Michael Bentine. I didn't know he did books like that.
XRAF, man. You don't know that? Come on.
I know I've not even thought about him for 40 years, but I loved him when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I loved him.
He was, you know, if there was a distillation of genius that wasn't looking for power, it would have been the Goons.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you know, Sellers.
Hello?
Hello,
cake.
Milligan, but Bentine is the forgotten one. Everybody's like,
oh, I know, I remember him in that. Harry Seacombe.
Yeah,
like my favourite sketch. What's that sketch? Was that for about 3 minutes?
Yeah.
And there's a guy going down the lighthouse steps to answer the door on Radio 4. And Spike Milligan only wrote that because he'd run out. They'd not paid him or something, and he just he had to fill in 6 minutes. It was the best sketch ever. Anyway, sorry, I'll digress.
No, it's good. But anyway, I was reading okay. I mean, you know, when I knew we were going to talk about awakenings, because I chronologically don't think about my own life very much at all. I'm 60 something, 65, born in 1956. But it's like, if I look back on it, oh my God, oh my God, I should have woken up when my grandfather told me. Oh my God, I should, you know. So I've kind of either blissfully got on with my life and taken no notice, you know, or alternatively been like, oof, I saw a bloke sat in a van next to me who looked like an Arab guy in a kaftan, and I was driving a van, and I was aquaplaning along the M4, driving a delivery vehicle, and I was going straight for the back of a lorry, and I look over, and this guy is sat in my passenger seat. I'm not allowed a passenger. You know, it's like, but there's someone sat in a passenger, and he turned around to me and he went, "It's okay, let go." And the van veered off and went into the slow lane. I mean, I had my feet, like my foot so solid on the brake as this happened, and it just drifted on its own through rows and rows and rows of traffic on the M4 near Swindon, and it just drifted off and slowed itself down. And my heart was pounding. I look over, he's gone. But it's like, so I'm like, oh, imagine that. Oh, I was putting the brake on. Oh, the wheel spun. You know, so it's, you know, that whole thing. This is something I'm learning all the time. Mental, spiritual, emotional, physical balance. I've always thought, oh yeah, well, I've got to keep those in balance. I'm lazy, so I don't do the physical very well, blah, blah, blah. But I've always had the mental one on top. Then a guy told me recently, actually, funnily enough, about 6 months ago, in a Zoom meeting, and he said, "You're forgetting your thumb." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're forgetting your thumb. All the time you've been balancing this with your human brain.
But you're missing
this is the transmitter and the receiver. You can't keep these in balance without this one." I was like, oh my God, the opposable thumb. And I'd already read Stephen Jay Gould's work on the opposable thumb, you know, and what do you call it? I can't remember. So many books. But Stephen Jay Gould was like, because he was explaining about, he was an anthologist, but he was explaining about the panda's thumb, and then he was a dinosaur in a haystack was another one of his, because these branches of evolution, you know, our whole basis that one guy knew all about evolution and nobody else. Darwin, that's it, we're done, that's it. No, I mean, there's so many millions of anthropologists and brilliant people who talk about branches and this and that, and where we came from and where we're going to, and all that. It's like, so, I mean, I love being in here. But so the awakenings, my grandfather used to visit us when I was 5 or 6 years old. My grandfather used to come from Bristol and visit my mum and dad. We lived in a small terraced house in Cheltenham. And he used to come for Christmas. And when he came, he'd come with a wooden crate full of Mackerson and put that down. That's his Christmas present to himself. And he'd slowly get drunk for a couple of days and tell us, me and my brother was 3 or 4 years, but I was 5, 6, you know, whatever. A couple of years older than him, but he'd tell us all the stories from the war. You know, we were raised, you know, late 50s, early 60s, watching black and white television, mostly propaganda films from the Second World War, all our yesterdays. I think we used to sit and watch that on Sunday mornings, you know, and then we'd go out and play soldiers. So my grandfather used to tell us stories, and he told me one story that I'll never forget, and it was he was captured in Dunkirk. And when he was captured, he was marched from Dunkirk back to the camps in Germany, and they beat him every step of the way. They collapsed his spine. He lived most of his life post-war, because by the time they got to Germany, war was over. So he was released. So he went back to England, but they put him in a lead and leather corset girdle that he wore his whole life. And he became when he came back from the war, he became a nurse, a carer in a hospital in Bristol. So, but he told me, he said, why we were there, I've no idea. Why we were bombed, I've no idea. Why I ended up in Dunkirk, I've no idea. And, you know, it was like, he was revealing, you know, like the 7 veils. He was lifting veil. I had no idea he was lifting veils for me. I became a dyed-in-the-wool pacifist. By the time I was 9 or 10, I was breaking up school fights rather than, you know, getting into the school fights, you know, like everybody else. And I was small, but, and, you know, I'd align myself with the biggest bully in the school and try and be his mate, and then stop him from fighting others. So I adopted this role of like peacemaker, which in a way has helped me all my life to continue to travel, to enjoy, to experience things. And I don't know, being a pro-peace activist is a lot different from being an anti-war activist.
Yeah, it is.
So being a pro-peace activist, I recognize the need for a certain amount of rules and regulations. And a lot of my anti-protester friends, you know, that I've met over the years, I think they'd be anti whatever's next. You know, if as we pray, this all changes and we become the wonderful, abundant earth that supplies for everybody, which it already does, but like you said, it's not been revealed yet. But it's like, it's already there.
It's already there.
But if we accept all of that into our lives, there'll still be a handful of people who go, "Oh, I'm against that. It's free."
Well,
it's like, you know, it's.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm not sure about that, but
I'm not entirely sure. I can't be entirely sure about anything. I've just heard the terrible. I mean, the news media here is awful. I just heard the news here, and it's like, you know. So how can I be sure? Well, only when I feel it. Yeah, not here. And all my life I've been in here. Even though I've traveled around the world, I've been in here. But, you know, when I was about 30, when I started traveling and I started really just putting it all together, you know, I worked in horse racing and as an apprentice jockey, and was made to sign my apprentice papers, and it said stable servant. on the apprentice papers, and I was pissed. And I was 14, 15 years old at the time. And I was pissed. I was like, I got to sign up to be a servant, a stable servant. I mean, I'm not stable and I'm not a servant, but you know, and I was like, oh, okay. So I realized then it's like, wow, this is my passport to get into being something I've wanted to be since I was a kid. Why do I want to be a jockey? And then I recognized and realized that I loved horses. I loved the countryside. I loved riding and going fast and all that thrill and excitement. But really, at the base of it all was I wanted my dad to tell me he loved me and he loved horse racing.
Wow.
And he was so Victorian. I mean, bless him. I mean, he just passed away. So bless him. It wasn't in his lexicon. It wasn't in his, I hate to say conditioning, but it just wasn't in his way until the end. And towards the end, he definitely softened, definitely started to recognize and realize the importance of love and family and saying so, you know, actually saying it rather than, you know, working in a job he hated all his life so as I could look after you kids, you know, all that, instead of all that guilt that, you know, that we transfer, it was much more of like, I'm so proud of you and what you've done and I love you. And but it took him all his life to get to that point. But when I was a child, I mean, I recognized fairly early on that part of why I wanted to be a jockey and ride winners was really just to get him to say he loved me. And that's, I mean, when you recognize that, you're like, wow, this world really is upside down. Inverse. You know, when, as a child, to recognize that. I mean, I had things happen to me as a child that should never have happened to me, you know, and they're things that were just formative for the rest of my life. So I make sure I tell my kids, my two beautiful daughters who are 20 and 18 now, and driving and living here in America. I tell them as much as I can, I love you. I think you're brilliant. Go out there, be good, be strong, do what you want.
That's what I've been telling my kids every day since they were born. And then
yeah,
they probably end up going to be policemen and lawyers now.
But I mean, it's not a control thing. See, that's the problem, is most people try and control. What you have to do is recognize and realize the influence you have and just go, okay, but if I show you how happy I am being free and being liberated from the invisible chains, the invisible prison bars, you know, how liberated I am from it, then maybe you'll be able to choose the same. Excuse me.
That's fine. So you went from being a stable servant to being a winner at Cheltenham as a jockey to existential angst at the age of 30-something in a flat in Cheltenham. Then you went around the world, and now you are 30 years later. You're in LA as a musician with Tunnelmental.
Yeah.
So what happened between?
Gosh, there's a lot of years to fill in. I think growing up out of the particularly, I mean, I felt it because it was 1950s, 1960s. So the particularly obstructive class system in England, where I'm going to say it because I feel it. It's like where your working class pride is as bad as their upper class pride, because it all it does is compound the system, you know. So I hate to say, you know, a lot of my friends actually who think I deserted them by traveling and traveling here and you know, astral traveling or wherever but you know, they think of me as a sellout because they're proud of their working class roots. Well, they're now unemployed, unemployable, you know, third generation welfare living people who are looking at me and going, oh, you're a huge success. Well, you know what? I am, because I did what I wanted. You didn't do what you wanted. You did what you were conditioned to do. I wanted them to all to just say, fuck it. You know, what punk rock taught me? Fuck it, do it.
Yeah.
Do it. If you think you can write a song, write a song. If you think you can stand in front of people and sing, do it. If you think you can make a great album, do it. If you can write a book, go do it. If you think you can travel around the world and end up in, you know, God knows where, do it. And don't stop yourself with this conditioned response. All of social media at the moment is confirmation bias, confirmation bias, confirmation bias. Like, this is what I believe, so these are my friends, and this is what we're allowed to see on social media. Confirmation bias, confirmation. It's like, it's fucking boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's boring. I'm lucky that I've got a lot of open-minded and open-hearted friends, particularly some brilliant psychic healers, light warriors, whatever you want to call them. But they're people that actually go on the astral plane and report back on what they see. Because this level of perception, we'll get back to Michael Bentine in a minute, the level of perception, the doors, once the doors of perception are cleansed, you know what I mean? It's like they're open, then we can actually let go of the idea of this human existence and recognize our true being. And our true being is ever eternal. I mean, eternal is weird. It's like a lot of people can't even get past the great mathematician friends. I've got some amazing mathematician friends who can't even comprehend when they write infinity, what infinity is, because they're putting infinity in time and space. And I said, no, infinity doesn't know time or space.
Because they're putting it inside a vessel. The vessel.
Yeah. And the vessel's theirs they made.
It's not infinity anymore,
yeah. It becomes a limited infinity. And that's the thing I've always found really bizarre, you know, is why would anybody choose a limited existence over a carefree, real existence that incorporates everything? Now, I know when you open the doors of perception, also a bunch of shit walks in too. You know, I'm not completely bamboozled by I'm certainly not here in California by the new age money, the new Green Deal, you know, all this stuff. I'm all about this abundant earth, Gaia. We look after this universe is us, we're us, you know, we're all one. I'm all about that. But a lot of these people are going, well, I can make money out of yoga. You know, I can make money out of this. I can make money out of it. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with making money out of it. But what they're doing is they're taking shortcuts into consciousness.
Well,
now, is it possible? Is it possible to take a shortcut into consciousness? Crowley tried to, and he had a huge influence over Hollywood. He met with what's his name? The Dianetics guy, L. Ron Hubbard. He met with L. Ron Hubbard early on, when Crowley and his black magic people started to spread through the secret societies, through the Skull and Bones, through the Rosicrucians, through all these connections he made with very powerful people. He met with L. Ron Hubbard. And if you drive along Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles now, each of the big buildings, including one of the bigger independent studios owned by Scientology.
Well, I was going to say, you're in the Viper's Den.
And I know. I mean, I was well aware of it.
I don't mean the nightclub either.
No, and I've played there too. We played when it was called the Central, and I've been to the Viper Room, where, you know, poor old River Phoenix died outside of. I was in the door. I was an extra in the Doors movie, and we shot in there in the Whiskey a Go Go, where my band had already played. So it was like, oh, this is bizarre, you know. So I'm aware of Hollywood Babylon, you know, the whole setup, the dark side setup. You know, the way. And I don't really want to get too much into the paedophilia and the protection of stars and celebrities and politicians and people in power and businessmen. I don't want to get too deep into that because that's all going to be revealed very, very soon. I feel it.
It is.
And it's about time. But, you know, I want to get into, I also don't want to go too deep into the ancient studies that I've done about the 2,600 year cycle that's now going to shift the earth back to where it, not back to, into a position where it can accept. You know, Gaia's going to move so as we can accept Gaia for what this abundant earth is. A lot of the overlays are being pulled off. You know, the matrix
actually ascended from the 24th to the 72nd over the last few days, and we've got a new sun and moon in place right now. This is my information.
Yeah.
Which is all ties in. It's just a different way of describing it, you know?
It is. I mean, there's so many different ways. I mean, one of the people I talk to fairly regularly now is Becky Barron, and she's Find the Light RB. But she's so matter of fact about, you know, oh, I'm going to go visit Trump. Oh, I'll go and look over at what's happening in Guantanamo Bay. Oh, I went to China Lake over in California recently. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I wanted to travel when I was in my 30s, and it's, you know, she's probably in her 30s. But I did it physically and went around the world and peeled off layers. But I didn't do it in the same astral plane sort of way that she's just, and she can go there. I mean, a bit like JCK,
yeah.
Yeah, a bit like JCK. And she's, yeah, and it's so, and it's so like, oh, I'm going to make a cup of tea. What? Yeah. Oh, I'm going to go visit, you know, I'm going to go visit the you know, the president of the US who's meeting with these people that are just pulling down all the pedophiles. It's like, okay, you know, I want to travel too.
Yeah, but maybe they can't write music like you can, and we've all got our skills.
Well, I mean, the thing that I was told, which I don't know if it's true, and you know, a lot of what I read here, even things about myself. Somebody recently said I'm too smart for my own good, which is funny because I consider myself to be nowhere near the level of intellect of the guy that said it to me. So I'm like, too smart for my own good. What does that mean? I mean, and so the idea that we can, if we put our minds to it, all be open to frequencies that we've denied ourselves, that's evident. I mean, I'm seeing, you know, I can look out the window right now and see all the beautiful green trees and the birds in the trees. I saw a hummingbird just landing on a tobacco plant just now, and they dart through. And it's like I'm seeing something, and yet, you know, somebody else I know was in here last night, looked out the window and said, smoggy. Oh, look at that fog. Oh, you can see the freeway. And I'm like, what? So what I'm saying is there are things even in our 5 sense arena that if we don't appreciate them, then they go out of focus. Mm-hmm. And then if we start to break down the bad parts, and I'm not saying they're not there, but what I'm saying is if that's what we focus on and we go deeply into the criticism of what's gone on and don't recognize the possibilities of what can go on, then we're shutting off a whole avenue of life. You know, I mean, live, love, life. I mean, it's so important. I mean, a lot of people forget that. We're all the sum of our own desire. If the system can reduce that desire, that flame, that desire, that, call it ambition, call it what you will. If they can reduce that so that you're just below, like even just below even being able to spark a light, you know, if they can reduce that spark, they'll do it. because it's much better for them to have us head down, automatons, doing their bidding. You know, it's so much. So when people say, "Oh," because you know, I mean, sometimes I'm a tinfoil hat wearer, sometimes I'm not. But when I say you've got to watch that control system, it's gonna clamp you, and they go, "Oh God, another one of those," and I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "How are you doing?" "Oh, I'm doing all right. I hate my job. I'm working 80 hours a week. I'm not really getting forward. I don't get the things I want." And I'm like, wow, I'm the tinfoil hat wearer.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like,
I'm going to tell you this. I went to a shop today, and the guy, I know the guy who owns the shop, and he said, "Mark, can you put a mask on, please?" And I said, "Listen, don't ask me because I don't want to fall out with you." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, I'd rather you didn't ask me to put one on because I like you and I don't want to fall out with you." So he said, "Could you stand outside the shop?" So I stood outside the shop and thought, okay, whatever. Then he comes out and we have a chat.
yeah.
And then he says, "So why won't you wear a mask?" I said, "Because it's all bollocks. Look around you, look at the rules, look at it." And he went, and then very quickly, he went, "Yeah, I've been thinking the same." I said, "Well, why are you wearing a mask then?" He said, "Well, because everybody else is." I'm like, it's a very thin veil, I find.
Oh, it is.
It's very powerful because it's extremely subtle, but it holds you in place. But that is definitely changing. I mean, I'm going to a Festival of Freedom March tomorrow in Dublin.
Nice.
And I'm doing it because they brought in more draconian laws, and there's going to be a lot of people there. And the vibe, it's going to be a vibe of love throughout that city, which is like a demonic centre of Ireland, like London is in England. And
yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware of. I mean, actually, I think even on one of your videos, you did a walk around and you were pointing out the Masonic Hall,
that's everywhere.
And it's everywhere. I mean, we all know it's everywhere. The problem is if we don't just go, yeah, really, you think you control us? You know, I mean, it's time. You know, I mean, I think
it is. That's why we're here to witness.
Yeah, and it's so brilliant because I didn't think I would. You know, even the 30 years of trying to work my way around what's really happening. You know, even those voyages of discovery, brilliant. You know, reading wonderful books. This is a brilliant one. Joseph Campbell,
The Hero of a Thousand Faces, one of my
yeah,
favorite. That book got me into the West End.
Cool. I mean, there's so many connections through that because, you know, I was a big Alan Watts fan. Alan Watts and Joseph met and talked in Escalon, which is 4 hours north of me, which I'm going to go visit soon. You know, it's closed at the moment because of the fires. But it's like, you know, there's so many interconnectivities that are to do with opening up, and it's not to do with like understanding and be able to read back, you know, like it's not, you know, I have friends who are voracious readers. They'll read 4 or 5 books a week. It'll take me 3 or 4 weeks to read one book. And the reason that it takes me 3 or 4 weeks to read one book is because I'm trying to understand it. I'm not trying to read it so as I can go, okay, tick it off a list. I've read that one, put it in the shelf. When people come and visit, they can look in the shelf, see what I've read. It's not about that. It's about
one of the biggest problems I've got with reading books, and I've read a lot, is it dawned on me about 10 years ago that the publishing companies themselves are part of the control grid, and they don't publish anything that allows you to wake up properly. And I realized this when I read. I found out about the changes to the Bible with the Romans and the Council of Nicaea in the 300 AD, and I've also with a book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich, when the final chapters were taken out of it by
the publishing company.
I think it was the guy who commissioned Carnegie, Andrew Carnegie.
Okay,
yeah, because the trick is to tell people enough, but not quite the secret bit. They don't tell you that bit. So it keeps everybody running around in circles. So somebody like you who's intellectually capable will read these books and try to understand them. and go around in circles because it's not all there. The pieces are deliberately not there. And once I realized that, that was a big moment for me because, like you said about Darwin earlier, they have placed gatekeepers, intellectual gatekeepers throughout history to keep us penned into their system. So Darwin was sponsored by Illuminati, cabal, whatever you want to call them. So was Einstein. So was Stephen Hawking, who was a literal puppet, who they controlled everything he said for 50 years. They wrote his book, Brief History of Time, did all this bullshit about physics and the history of the universe. It's all bollocks. And it keeps, but the worst people in the world are the people who listen to Radio 4, the people who read the Times, because they believe that they're intellectually superior to everybody else, but they're the worst. They're the heart, and that's how they've managed to radicalize the intellectual left, if you want to call it that. I don't believe in left or right, but if you want to pigeonhole things like that. And I've got many, many friends who are high achieving, famous, rich, liberal left wing, traditional liberal left wing, you know, like socialists, right? Who think that you know, the world should be an equal place. And they're coming from a good place. They're coming from their heart. They're coming from a heart place, but they've been hoodwinked.
Oh, absolutely,
absolutely hoodwinked. And this is.
I mean, I was on a when I was in London, 2013, 2014. I can't remember. I went on a march and rally, a peace rally. And it was funny. It's two very famous people I talked to. Big deal, they're famous. But I talked to them, and both of them really surprised me with similar information that you've just said, which is, one was Brian Eno. He was reading out the names of the dead in Afghanistan. Yeah. And Brian Eno, I was like, it's Brian Eno? What's he doing on a protest? So I walk over and I chat to him. I said, I'm a musician, you know, I've always admired your work. I said, why haven't you been more outspoken before? He said, well, because my record company wouldn't let me. And I said, but, you know, your music has always just opened, you know, doors for me and all that. But to know that you're here saying it's wrong to be literally slaughtering people in a pointless war for a pointless cause, I said, I'm more power to you for doing it. And he said, yeah, well, you know, sometimes we hamstring ourselves, you know, sometimes we do that to ourselves, and sometimes we have it done to us. He said, I'm not going to blame anybody, but for the longest time, I believed that if I had anything to do with politics or anything to do with the way that the system is run, then I wanted it to be just pure artistic. He said, but now there's a recognition that they'll kill us all. They'll cull, you know, they're going to cull if we don't say something. So, and I was like, oh, more power to you, Brian. You know? And then later on the march, I was with a singing group of wonderful old ladies, and we were singing peace songs outside, you know, behind cordons with banners. It was a anti-war against Syria. It's when the British government were very dramatically involved in setting up another, you know, false flag operation, all this crap. And Tony Benn was there. Now, I'd met Tony Benn when he was a politician at a GCHQ, anti-GCHQ, because I'm originally from Cheltenham, and I went to this thing and listened to him speak. And I'd met him then when he was very much into being a career politician at that time. He was trying to get, I think it was when Michael Foot was at the head of the Labour Party at that time, and Michael Foot and Tony Benn would have been a ticket for people to, I mean, because, you know, socialism, whether it's from your heart or your head, the idea that movement was going to gain. And then when I met Tony Benn in 2014, he said to me, he said, the work I'm doing now for peace is more important than any of the work I've done or could have done. He said, because you can't move, because of the bureaucracy within the system. You can't move politically if you're in a political party.
No.
So once I left the party and I retired and I do my own thing, the last 5 or 6 years of my life have been the most productive because I'm doing more towards peace and to open people's hearts. So, you know, it's funny, you know, if you don't, if you try individually, if you try too hard for anything, that's its sole purpose is to control others, like totally control them. I think that's dark arts. I think that's dark forces. If you're doing it for the betterment of mankind, you know, I do believe in white and black magic. I'm aware.
Magic is real.
Yeah, everyday magic.
Been under a spell, literally.
Yeah. Oh, literally. I mean, that's why they call it spelling.
Yeah, exactly. But in fact, English language itself is a prison.
Of course.
And that's why it's changed over the years. And people say, oh, that's the evolution of the language. No, it's not. It's been deliberately manipulated to create this prison that we live in. But it's, do you have any optimism from the Californian musician point of view? What do you see?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean,
what good things are you seeing?
I'm seeing a lot of people who are focused on God, and I use the word in a very broad sense. They're focused on good. They're focused on God. They're not focused on self. So I'm seeing a lot of people, especially musicians, giving away their music, giving away their art, trying to reach out, trying to understand why they allowed themselves to be manipulated. There are some great musicians, great songwriters, and great people. If they came here solely to make money and self-grandiose, you know, make themselves bigger, then they lost the plot. But a lot of them are recognizing and realizing the oneness, this idea of if we get to the truth, the real truth, if we get to the truth, then this abundant world still belongs to us. But if we fall for the lie, then we're just going to see a bunch of bars in front of us all the time. And I don't think there are many artists and musicians who want to be penned in, even though they might start off thinking, oh, you know, if I write a song about that, I'll get $1 million. Even they might start off that way, but eventually they get to the point, because music needs to come from here, not from here. They get to the point where it's like, okay, let's recognize and realize that this abundant world is providing everything that we need, and there's plenty of room for everybody, and I don't need to be top dog. I mean, I like competition. You know, I grew up competing. I mean, I was a jockey and various other things, but it's like, I don't see art as competition. I never saw art as competition except with self. It's a bit like, you know, single sports. I have friends who are totally into sports, like single sports, where it's you, not just the team. It's you versus the mountain, let's say skiing.
Yeah.
So the challenge to self is to make it as good as it can be, whatever it is.
I've been really encouraged by British musicians in the last couple of weeks, because we've had Ian Brown from the Stone Roses speaking out against the mask. We've had
even Noel Gallagher.
Noel Gallagher's been kicking on. Van Morrison's just released a song that I listened to yesterday called "We Are Born to Be Free," I think, which is brilliant.
Right at the start of the pandemic, I posted the Bob Dylan song. You know, Bob Dylan doesn't do anything.
The JFK.
The JFK one.
The longest.
it's
18 minutes long.
yeah, it's been an obsessive study for him, and you know, to me, it's like somebody is as prolific a writer as Bob Dylan. Not necessarily a big fan, but it's like somebody as a prolific a writer to bring out like an 8-minute song about JFK.
It was 18 minutes. The one
18 minutes, yeah, whatever. You know, but it's yeah, but it's to me, it's like, okay, now I'm starting to wake up. Now I'm starting to recognize and realize what it is that's behind the veils. You know, it's like
interesting you mentioned Dylan, because I was listening to an interview with him from the 70s, I think, where he said on camera that he'd sold his soul to the devil. And I think that definitely with music and art, you know, a friend of mine, there's usually a painting behind me, but it's in the gallery being scanned today. Even in that world, you know, we were talking about that this morning, about how that's, you know, the art world in and of itself is really a cover for money laundering, sex trafficking, child trafficking, at the highest levels. That's what it really is. That's why you get all these ridiculous amounts of money. And then you look at the art movement itself, it definitely got infiltrated by satanic imagery and stuff that's all designed to fuck with your frequency. Same with the music. The rise of Simon Cowell in popular music has been like the worst thing to happen in history. You know, it's just not music. And it's and also the frequency of music, when they changed it from 432 to 440 deliberately, because it fucks your vibrational frequency up, and it creates this confusion, which is another part of the full spectrum dominant system that they have. So it's wonderful to see and hear from you as well. The artists, you know, I'm seeing a lot of creativity bursting out. I got sent pictures earlier from a friend of mine's 5-year-old, and they're just brilliant drawings. And it's like my daughter, she's making, and it's like all this. I know this is definitely the good thing that's happening from this. For sure. In this weird year that we're still in.
It is weird. I mean, it started off, I mean, I started 2020 with like just an amazing series of epiphanies about art. Sometimes I'll literally put pen to paper, and I'll look up. I'll be like, wow, I wrote 3 pages of lyrics. How are we going to pare this down to make it into a song? You know, it's like, so it becomes evident that you know, I mean, I think early on I said somebody accused me of being too smart for my own good. I don't consider myself to be an intellect. I'm a channeler of energies. We all are, but I recognize that I'm a channeler of energies, and I have to know when those energies come, that it's not the muse or Simon Cowell saying I'm brilliant. It's me knowing that this is not just worthy of writing, but it's worthy of me not getting in the way of.
Yeah.
There's a big difference, you know, because if you have to, then it becomes evident that it's either of worth out there in the ether, or it's of worth here in the inner. So when I started the year 2020, 18 songs, my music partner Derek and I, we wrote 18 songs in 18 weeks, recorded, finished, produced, and it's an album called A Few Our Souls. It's part of the lyric of one song, A Few Our Souls, and depends how you say it. So, but it's part of the lyric because I have a lot of lyrical play. But it's those songs just came to me and Derek, and we just did it. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm so happy that went out there. And it went out on my dad's birthday. Sadly, passed away this year. Valentine's Day, 2020. And it's an album of 18 songs. I think it's brilliant. But the titles of the last 3 albums, the one 3 years ago was Waiting Here for You, which was part of the lyric of one of the songs. The next album was Shooting from the Lip. And then this one, A Few Our Souls. All of them just fell out of us. I mean, it wasn't forced. There was no issues. We just went into our little studio that we built ourselves and recorded everything, did it all. And it was a magical, like these last 8-10 years doing music with Derek, magical. And then after February, when that was released, a guy contacted me who was independent publisher of poetry. He was the beat poet laureate, named Paul Richmond. He's really, really talented. But he's channeling energies. But it's like he runs a publishing company called Human Error, and he said, "I want to publish a book of your poetry." And I was like, "Yeah, right." And he's like, "No, I want to publish a book of your poetry." He's based in Boston, Massachusetts. We never met. We've done some online backwards and forwards stuff, and I know he liked my music. And I was like, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, so how does that work?" And he said, "Well, you just write your own intro and write your own bio and give me a bunch of poems, and we'll go backwards and forwards on a program, correcting ourselves and correcting yourself." So I'll put the book out. And that started to sell. I was very surprised because to me, I've always had the ability to put pen to paper. I keep a journal. I write because I read. I write so as I can remind myself what I've read and then realize it in my own life. Try and learn from the things I read rather than just read them. So I'm absorbing things, and then pen to paper. So when he said he wanted to publish a book of my poetry, I was like, oh. And he said, "Have you had any poetry published before?" I said, "Yeah, there was a collective of Los Angeles, California poets called I can't remember what they're called. Oh well, whatever. But they go back to the 60s. They're part of the beat poet radicals, and I had a couple poems that I submitted for that. But it was run by a guy that used to work, or I met a couple of times at Occupy LA, because I went down to Occupy LA and met, of the thousands and thousands that I saw, that I met 3 good people that were going to stay with me for the rest of my human existence, because they were very well aware of that spike being a very important one. I'm not saying it's not important, hugely important one, but of the thousands that glommed onto it as a party, and became very much in control of a lot of what Occupy shouldn't have done. That was because they were usurped by, hate to say it, but like minority neoliberal groups who had ideas for taking it where they wanted, instead of it being a broad stroke, like, come on, let's just pull the veils down. No, it wasn't a broad stroke at all. It was a chance to capture people in a politically educated way and trap them into an ideology that can't possibly work. It's kind of weird. It's almost like they created their own trap.
Well, that's what's been going on for centuries.
It's problem, reaction, solution. I mean, the people who read
filtration and
yeah,
like
Hegelian dialect, the whole divide and rule. I mean, all of it
doesn't work. It just doesn't. It's all got to be scraps, and I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's all being scrapped.
I think so too. I mean, the thing I'm reading, the thing I recently got told by one of my well-connected LA friends was, "Nigel, do you know anything about the Constitution?" And I said, "Well, I know a lot about my Constitution." And he said, "Well, you're going to need a good Constitution to read the Constitution. 14th Amendment, Section 2, Section 3, read them now because it's happening." And I'm like, "Okay, I understand." And he's like, "Okay." So I look up the Constitution. It's all there, I mean, you can pull it up online. It's simple to read. And I'm talking to a mechanic friend of mine. I'm going to go buy a car for myself, so as I can go to places I want to go in California with him. But he's like, yeah, we've got to get back to the idea of the Constitution. And then I start putting two and two together. You know, the presidential debate. I did watch it because I thought it's going to be great theatre, and it was theatre. Wasn't great theatre, but it was theatre. But there was a point in there that nobody, I mean, they'll pull apart these presidential debates, no matter, they have done since, well, for time immemorial. I mean, there's a whole documentaries about the Nixon and, you know, but it's like, anyway, this first presidential debate, they've said everything about tax and stumbling Joe and, you know, bully boy Trump and all. Nobody's focusing on the judicial arm of the government, the judicial arm of the government, you know, because there's state, you know, it's divided up, but the judicial arm. And Trump, you know, as he is a braggadocio, you know, he's a bragger, and he has a right to, I suppose, but it's like, we all do. But when he said 300 judges, you drop the ball, we have these judges. It's like he's telling them, we got you.
Yeah.
Whether we win the election or lose the election, we fucking got you.
Yeah.
And he told them all 300, he said 300 politics. You missed the judges. You missed it. And that's from a previous president who was a background in civil law. He's a lawyer. It's like, and you missed the opportunity to take the judicial part. And
well, they already had it. They've had it for a long time.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, it's like constitutional law, because I'm all about common law. You know, I'm a common law person. I'm kind of I err on the side of anarchy purely because I don't think big government works.
It doesn't.
So, you know, I'm an anarchist in here, but in truth, it's like there's an opportunity here. And I don't think Trump belongs to any political party. I don't think he's doing anybody else's bidding, except for maybe a few very close friends. And, you know, I don't want to even get to the point where it's black hat, white hat and all that stuff. But I can't see any opposition that's there in this political system. I don't think there's a political solution to this spiritual problem, but I do believe that the person in charge right now is probably better for the world than the person they're trying to replace him with, because that's not a person at all. That's an entity.
It's not even that. I think I replied to Biden on Twitter today, I think, because he put a tweet out saying, this is truly a battle for the soul of America. And I said, Joe, you have to have a soul.
A few are souls.
You actually have to.
A few are souls. I know. I mean, you know, early on when we were talking, I was saying, I don't want to get into the whole pedophilia. You know what? It's all based around the control system. The control system that's kept the people on there's a thin line, beautiful thin line, shortcuts into consciousness. Aleister Crowley, that side of the line, the dark side. But the shortcuts into consciousness, you know, they're if you get warnings, check the source. If it resonates with you and there's a frequency, you check the source, right? So white magic is acceptance of the greater good. It's acceptance of the greater good. That's what white magic does. Everyday magic. And it happens every day, all the time. Things like coincidence, things like deja vu, they're white magic. That's all. And if you can tune into that frequency, if you can make yourself aware of that white magic, the everyday magic, this earth belongs to us. We came from it. We'll go to it. This whole consciousness, the fact that we're all one, super important. But the black magic wants to isolate you. in your ambition and ego and desire, and trap you in its own confusion. It wants to trap you into confusion. Order through chaos. I mean, look at, you know, the whole MO for any of these ancient rites groups, the Masonic, yeah, it's order through chaos. It's like, well,
but it's their order through
yeah, in truth, that's following the order of the chaos. I don't want to follow the order of the chaos. I want to live within this beautiful, abundant chaos that I see all around me. Well, but I want to live. I want to live my.
Sure, it's happening.
Yeah,
it's happening. So look, we're running out of time.
Oh, sorry, mate.
No, that's fine. It's just Friday, and I've got children, and I've got a protest to go to.
Good man.
But you know, you've been around the block, and you've been on a massive journey of. And I think it's a great story. You know, being the existential jockey who's now a musician in California. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant story, and it's the kind of thing that I'll sit down, show the kids, and say, look, you know, don't worry about what you want to do, because you're going to find you just go with it.
Do what you love and love what you do, and you'll find out that it becomes the vehicle for a very interesting journey. If not, you can have a boring journey. It's fine. You know, anybody who wants to go sit on the bus and just go where the bus driver takes you is great. I don't want to do that. I want to drive the bus. I want to drive the bus.
In a race.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, life should be a series of adventures. I mean, I'll go to the local store and it's an adventure for me. You know, I've never tired of life. It's such an adventure, but it's such an abundant world, and it can support you as long as your intentions, it's all about intentions, if your intention is to make a better world and not harm anybody along the way, then this world is so brilliant and it's so amazing. And, you know, you can pin your hopes on anything you want, but once you start having these, so many great books, great expectations. If you keep having these expectations of a system that you think is dark, corrupt, and evil, and then you pin your hopes on the things within that system, and it fails, and you curse it, you're a fucking idiot, because you haven't realized or recognized that that's not where your desires are. Your desires are in the light. It's to be a better person, to live a better life, to love life for what it is. It's a gift. It's a gift from God, and it's a gift from whatever you want to call your God. And so don't throw it away. You know, it's ungrateful to throw away a gift. It's so ungrateful.
Yeah.
Live it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, you know, the biggest gift, well, there's lots of gifts you've given me today, but one is I'm going to go and look at Michael Bentine's books that I've never read.
Yeah, I think they might be out of print. I think the Dormark Summer and the Doors of Perception, I might be out of print. I mean, there's obviously the ones he did that were more linked towards his children's books, but you know, these were much more metaphysical, you know, mind expanding, because he talks about airline pilots that, because he was in the RAF, he talks about airline pilots that, you know, the British Royal Aircraft Friends who went over on bombing missions in Germany, got wings and engines shot off in Germany, and still made it back to England on one wing and a prayer.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said that there was divine intervention. He believed there was a divine good that was carrying these people back to help them land into. And he talks about things like connectivity to ancient Albion for him, because, you know, he's very much a very English person, but to the antiquity of this beautiful earth. You know, to actually just lie on the grass or even stand. I mean, I've stood in the middle of Avebury Stone Circle. I've stood on Holy Land here, you know, like Native American Holy Land here. And if I close my eyes, I really just let go of you know, this meat suit, adventures in a meat suit. If I let go of this meat suit, I'm like, whoa, you know, I mean, time just goes whoops, space goes whoops, and you just go, wow, I'm connected, you know. And it's that resonance, that knowing, that frequency where you go, gosh, this is a magical place. This is a brilliantly magical place, you know. And you got to keep that alive. And it's so hard because all these distractions keep coming at you. You know, it's like, boo, 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 boo. You know, it's like having 2 conveyor belts flying past you, especially here in the States. You know, my first journey, I wrote a song called Advertising Junkie. One of my first journeys when we came here to record an album was a friend drove me to Vegas in his van, which was about a 5 to 7 hour drive. And we go through the desert and it's fantastic because it's pitch black and it's found out in this van. I'm like, oh God. And then you get within 10 miles of Vegas and billboard, and it's birth, school, work, death, birth, school. They're selling you mortuaries and hospitals where you can be born. And it's like, really? And then you see this carbuncle on humanity, this Vegas, this light coming out of this top of this fake pyramid that's shooting up towards the stars, and you can see it from miles away and you're out in the desert and you look at it and it's like all this ugly light, this fake light.
That's horrible.
Whoa. So I wrote a song called Advertising Junkie straight away because I saw that we're bombarded all the time with stuff we don't want. And we lose focus, you know. We lose the idea that we lose focus on purpose. They're trying to get us to lose focus.
Yeah, it's all by design.
You were looking, beginning of this, you were looking for your glasses because you lost them. You don't need your glasses. This is all third eye stuff, mate. This is like, you know, it's like, you have to, I mean, I think you're doing an awesome job on helping people understand that this isn't a game of, hey, I'm woke. Are you woke? This is not a game.
No.
No longer a game. This is be good, have honest intentions. I think I heard you say in an interview recently, live a goodly, godly life. Because this is it.
Well, do your best to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be, brilliant writers. Oscar Wilde, I can resist everything except temptation.
Yeah.
Obviously we're going to be tempted. We're in a meat suit. We're and you know, I hate to admit it, I'm a man, but it's like, you know, so temptation, yeah, of course, but in truth, my intention is never to harm. My intention is to enjoy. My intention is to have desire. I have never ever supported anybody that's an outright what's the Nietzsche followers? What one of my daughters read Nietzsche, and I was like, got to be careful with that stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
That's why I'm not butting in.
Yeah, and it's like, so yeah, but it's like this whole idea of living a life that's just purely hedonistic, just pure hedonism. I'm in Los Angeles.
Easy to do that.
Yeah, it's like here, kitty. Oh, you know, it's like it's there, but it's like, no, I live a wonderful, abundant life, and I create, and I love my life, and I'm enjoying it. But I worked in the film industry for 30 years. I was a production designer, an art director. I've worked with very famous people. I've worked with some complete and utter lunatics, but I saw it for what it was. And after 9/11, and I don't want to blame 9/11, after 9/11, 2001, the shift happened again. You know, that maybe it was one of my wake up moments that I ignored, but at the same time, when that happened, there became another veil lifted, and oh my God, these people I'm working for, advertising agencies, because I was working as doing mostly commercials, making quite a lot of money. These people are despicable. They'll sell you anything, but not only sell you anything, they'll beat you up to sell you something. And it's like, you know, and so I got sucked into the machine.
Yeah.
But all the time I'm like, okay, I'm at a distance. I'm at a distance. You know, I've got one of those stupid spit guards that people have on in front of them right now. It's like I had my spit guard up, and it's like, no, it's gonna suck my soul through that pit, through that spit guard. So I was like, I'm out. So I just said, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to do this. I still put my toe in the water.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm right next to the beautiful ocean. Why wouldn't I put my toe in the water? But I have to be very, very, very aware that I'm swimming with sharks.
Mm.
I mean, I had one filmmaker friend here who was enamored with my life story. And of course, it fed into my ego. Oh, yeah, well, I suppose I shouldn't have been a jockey, but I could, you know, I was determined. And then he started writing it, and he was writing it as a story, as a screenplay, and he was going to sell it as a film and all that stuff. And I said, well, it's my story. You can't sell my story. He said, oh, just think of it like Billy Elliot. I said, you know what? I'm going to think of it like Billy Idiot. Tear it up. You don't own that. You don't own that. That's Billy Idiot right there. Rags to riches, fuck you. I'm not rags to riches. I've always been riches. I've had so many beautiful people in my life. That is it. Yeah. It's not about, you know.
You're not on your deathbed thinking about the Jaguar. You're thinking about people you're leaving behind.
Jaguar?
Yeah, whatever, you know, material stuff. You're not thinking about that on your deathbed. You're thinking about.
Well, no, I mean, I'm taking my Jag with me when I go.
Oh yeah, you can take it now.
Oh yeah. Apparently, if you've got one of the 1962 original restored Jags,
yeah,
you know, the original ones that haven't had the steering wheel changed to the other side for American market because they're willing to pay for it. No. But if you have one of the originals restored, they let you drive it into heaven now.
Cool.
And you have your own parking spot.
That's fine. Brilliant.
And yeah, so it's. I mean, I saw yours when I was up there the other day. I was driving my Jag, just practice run, you know. So I was having a practice run. I was driving down this lane. I was like, oh my God, waving at this guy in a Maserati. And then I saw my parking space, and I was like, oh, clearly there, you know, Nigel /God Mitchell. So I drove into the parking spot, and then I looked over, and it said Mark Atwood next to me, and I was like, cool.
Two English blokes talking about Jags.
I know. I mean, it's so funny, isn't it? I mean, it poor old Guy Ritchie, you know, I mean, sucked into the machine and then putting out fucking propaganda for the.
Well, he did marry the chief witch.
Well, he did marry her because he thought it was a good career move.
I'm sure he must have been part of something, but I'm not going to go back there because me and my son still like Snatch, and we watched.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie. You know, I like Dags. I like Dags. Isn't that where the Brad Pitt does the gypsy?
What was the word you said? Dags.
Dags. It's the way he did the gypsy accent.
Oh yeah, he was brilliant in it.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dags.
Yeah. Yes.
I love Dags. I love Dags, mate. You know, do you want to buy a caravan with no wheels?
Bikies. But anyway, not going there. Listen, Nigel, we're gonna have to love you and leave you.
All right, mate.
Really enjoyed that. Send me some links. I'll put them in the video below, and
okay.
To any of the books and your music and anything else that you think is going to be of interest, because you know,
okay,
not all night, but time is what it is. Even though it
because this was titled Awakenings, I just want to say, don't sit there expecting to wake up. Don't sit there expecting to wake up. Every dreams are linked to utopia. Every nightmare is linked to dystopia. Every dream you have, follow it. It's a dream. It's a dream and it's an awakening. Every time you dream of a better world, and it's a fantastic dream, and it's multicolored and it's amazing, that's the real world.
Well, that's a lovely way to end it. Thank you, Nigel.
Bless you. Bless you. Mark, I'm having an adventure.
So am I. It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll send you some links for music, but it's basically Google Tunnelmental. You'll find everything, or whatever search engine you prefer. But Tunnelmental is a made-up word.
I love it. Thanks, Nigel.
The logical progression beyond tunnel vision.